Israel's history of self-destruction through assimilation, civil division, and opposition to Zionism. The story of Israel is not only one of survival against outside enemies, but also one of recurring internal fractures brought about by assimilation, division, and ideological resistance to its own national destiny. Throughout the Bible and history, moments of weakness often came when Jews absorbed the culture of surrounding nations, fought among themselves, or rejected the idea of national restoration. This pattern, stretching from the Golden Calf to modern political movements, shows how Israel's greatest danger has often come from within. Let's examine the ancient Golden Calf incident, assimilation in the wilderness. The first major example of destructive assimilation appears in Exodus 32. When Moses was on Mount Sinai receiving the Torah, the people below turned to Egyptian-style idol worship, crafting a golden calf. This act was more than rebellion. It was assimilation of Egyptian religion into Israel's life. The people who had just been delivered from slavery turned back to the familiar practices of their oppressors. The result was immediate fracture. Moses stood in the gate of the camp and called, "Who is on the Lord's side?" Exodus 32:26. The Levites rallied to him, and judgment fell on those who clung to idolatry. This incident demonstrated the deadly consequences of adopting foreign customs. It divided Israel, brought about internal bloodshed, and nearly destroyed the covenant community at its inception. Next, let's review Hellenism and the Maccabean crisis. Centuries later, during the Maccabean period, Israel faced another internal crisis of assimilation. 1 Maccabees 1:11-15 records how lawless men among the Jews encouraged their brethren to embrace Greek customs, building gymnasiums in Jerusalem, and even abandoning circumcision. This movement sought acceptance in the dominant Hellenistic culture, but it split the Jewish people. On one side stood the Hellenized Jews who saw identity in Greek culture, while on the other stood the Hasmoneans and faithful Jews who resisted assimilation and defended the Torah. The resulting conflict was not merely a fight against the Seleucid Empire, but also a civil war within Israel itself. Assimilation once again nearly erased Jewish distinctiveness, but those who resisted preserved Israel's covenantal identity. Let's examine the modern assimilation movements against Zionism. The same sociological pattern of assimilation and internal division continued into the modern era, especially regarding Zionism. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, many Jewish groups rejected the call for national restoration in the land of Israel, preferring instead to assimilate into the ideologies of surrounding nations. Number 1, the General Jewish Labor Bund, founded in 1897. This socialist movement taught that Jewish emancipation should come not through a national homeland, but through integration and socialist struggle. The Bund opposed Zionism, arguing that Jews could find their place in the fight for workers' rights within Europe. Number 2, Reform Judaism in America, the Pittsburgh Platform of 1885. Leaders of the Reform movement in the United States explicitly rejected political Zionism, declaring that America, not Israel, was their homeland. They saw Judaism as a purely religious identity, severed from national and territorial aspirations. Number 3, the Association of German National Jews, early Nazi era. In the 1930s, this organization sought to prove Jewish loyalty to Hitler's Germany. Instead of supporting Zionism, they aligned themselves with German nationalism, hoping assimilation would protect them. However, in the end, it didn't. Number 4, the German Vanguard, a group of Jewish nationalists in Germany. The Vanguard scorned Zionism, Eastern European Jews, and Marxism alike. Fiercely patriotic to Germany, they believed their future lay not in Israel, but in full assimilation into German nationalism. Each of these movements repeated the same biblical pattern, rejecting God's call for Jewish distinctiveness in favor of blending into surrounding ideologies. In every case, this rejection led not to acceptance, but to destruction, whether under the sword of Antiochus or the boot of the Nazis. Next, the pattern repeated today. The same fractures continue into the present. In America today, both liberal and conservative Jewish groups stand in opposition to political Zionism. Liberal Jewish voices such as Bernie Sanders and progressive Jewish organizations argue that Jewish security and emancipation will not come through Zionism, but through socialism, universalism, in alignment with progressive causes. In doing so, they often oppose the Jewish state, echoing the Bund and Reform leaders of the past. Jewish conservative nationalists in America, and even certain Jewish Orthodox groups also distance themselves from Israel and Zionism. Some argue that Jewish life should assimilate fully into American nationalism and not Zionism at all. They emphasize only loyalty to their host nation and often criticize modern Israel as divisive, too liberal or secular, immoral or unimportant to Jewish identity. Thus, both the left and the right within the Jewish world have produced assimilationist ideologies that undermine the Jewish nation, just as in biblical and historical times. Conclusion: a repeating biblical sociology. From the Golden Calf to Hellenism, from the Bund to Reform Judaism, from German nationalist Jews to today's liberals and conservatives, Israel's greatest threat has often come not from external enemies, but from internal rejection of its covenantal identity and national destiny resulting in self-destruction. The Bible shows that assimilation leads to fracture and destruction, while faithfulness preserves Israel's uniqueness. History confirms that whenever Jews abandoned Zionism and tried to blend into the dominant culture, disaster followed. The recurring sociological pattern is unmistakable. It's just as ancient Israel fractured through assimilation and civil division, so too in the modern era, Jews continue to divide over Zionism. The lesson of history and scripture is clear. Israel survives not by dissolving into other nations or ideologies, but by remaining faithful to its covenant and destiny as a people in its land. The Jewish people's greatest hope always rests in the eternal covenants given to Israel by God, and where peace will reign and warfare will end for all nations.